What are your financial priorities? Financial priorities are agreed upon milestones that are designed to help you reach your personal financial goals. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Shanita, and on this channel, we talk about the strategies, tools, and tips to help you become more productive, amp up your side hustle game, as well as pay off your student loan debt faster. So if any of these topics interest you, keep watching. So what it all really boils down to is, what do I want my life to look like? Once I complete this challenge of getting one of my predatory private student loan debts paid off, then what? Do I go back to doing the things that I used to do? Or has this challenge impacted me in such a way that I've developed new strategies that have influenced the way I choose to move about my life? So I'm gonna start with the obvious. The very first thing you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to write it down. In an effort to make sure that we actually take action on any of these things, let's make sure we write these things down first. We'll start by developing sinking fund categories, whereby you save a little bit of money each month towards something specific. And the key is to give it a name. In developing a sinking funds plan that actually works, first ask yourself the question, what does your goal look like? So name each goal that will inevitably cost you money in order to achieve it. In my case, I have 6 sinking funds goals: personal trainer, getting a bike, establishing a domestic travel fund, vacation fund, increasing my emergency fund, and attending a few therapy sessions throughout the year. Ask yourself, how much will each of these goals cost? Then assign a monetary value to each of these goals. Personal trainer is the very first goal on my list. It's something that I absolutely really want. I've had personal trainers in the past, so I'm very familiar with the layout of working with a personal trainer. I just don't get the same adrenaline rush as I do when I'm actually working with someone by my side who's either doing the exercises with me or coaching me through the proper ways of doing these exercises. So for me, it's worth the investment. Let's say neither of us knew how much a personal trainer costs. We would just simply do a Google search. How much is a personal trainer? Now, I know the trainer that I want to work with is way more than what's being pulled up on Google search, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to go with the numbers that we're researching here on the screen so that I'm not infringing upon this personal trainer's business practices and pricing adjusted for inflation. So now that I know how much a personal trainer is, I'm going to be breaking that out into monthly payments towards my sinking funds. Now, when I'm not working with this personal trainer, I want to enjoy having a bike so that I could use that as a form of social activity. There's a ton of new biking trails now here in Houston, and the city is making it much more accessible for people to use their bikes. There's bike lanes, and so I'm really excited to get out into the biking community. So admittedly, I didn't do much research at all on the cost of purchasing a bike, and I don't really think I want to buy a used bike. I think I'd rather just go out and buy a new bike. Upon doing a quick Google search, it looks like it's going to range around between $300 to $700, not including any of the accessories such as helmets, shoes, gloves, phone mount. Next is a travel fund. I would like to do more domestic travel, seeing friends and family more often. I really haven't been able to do much of that over the last 2 years, so if I'm not flying internationally, I would at least like to have some travel funds so that I could be able to fly out domestically. On average, a domestic flight halfway across the country is going to range between $300 and $700. So I'm going to be breaking that goal out into monthly payments throughout the year. Now, in terms of my emergency fund, I do have a $1,000 emergency fund, but I would like to bump that up just a little bit more for an extra cushion. My car is fairly old, and so if something were to happen to it, I would like to make sure that I have some sort of additional buffer in the event that I absolutely need to repair it right away. Therapy. So I have suffered some losses of some loved ones in my life, and I don't really think I've developed the tools in order to be able to handle that loss. And I think it's really important that I talk to somebody else who can help me through some of those things. So with that said, I think I'm going to utilize a therapist and account for about 1 session a week, 3 times a month. Now, in order to pay for that, I'm probably going to be using my HSA funds, which are funds distributed from a health savings account. I am enrolled in a high deductible health plan, HDHP. That's typically for people who identify as fairly healthy people who don't really need to see medical professionals on a more consistent basis. Therefore, their co-pays tend to be a little bit higher, but their deductions from their paychecks on average tend to be a little bit smaller. Those types of plans are traditionally paired with HSA accounts, health savings accounts. As a reminder, if you are finding value in this video, please don't forget to give it a like. And if you enjoy this type of content, please don't forget to subscribe and be sure to hit the notification bell. So once my insurance kicks in, my copay for these therapy sessions will be about $88, which means I can use my personal income to pay the copay, or I can use my HSA. I'm going to choose to use my HSA for this, which means that I'm going to increase my health savings contributions, which means that I can take out money from my paycheck and put it into my HSA account pre-taxed. The tax benefit to all of that is my taxable income will be based off of what is left after my HSA withdrawals have already been taken into account. When we calculate this $88 times 3 sessions a month, that equals $264 per month. I don't currently at the moment know how many months it will take for me to work through my therapy sessions, but I am going to just account for at least 3 or 4 months of therapy sessions. What steps must you take to obtain your goal? Figure out how you're going to manage this goal over time so that it's sustainable and within reach. Now that I've gotten the goals named and I've assigned a monetary value to each of these goals, it's now time to put these into action and actually assign them to physical accounts. So I have 2 different bank accounts. One is a commercial bank account and another one is a credit union. So I have a very love-hate relationship with my credit union. For the same reasons I hate actually using this credit union is the exact same reason for why I love the idea that that might be the best place to put my money there. So the credit union is much farther out from where I live. Initially, when I opened up the credit union, it was fairly close to where I live. But then I moved and now it's like a 40-minute drive just to get to that credit union. It's not exactly the most ideal situation for me to get out there. I would actually have to plan time for that. In addition to this, it's a small credit union, which means that there isn't really a lot of staff on hand at the same time. So it moves a little bit slower pace than a commercial bank. I need to make sure that I take into account the fact that I might be there a little bit longer than I would prefer. I could always, of course, call, but just like how there isn't a whole lot of staff on hand, there really isn't a whole lot of staff when it comes to phone customer service. So there are longer hold times in order for me to speak with a representative. And so let's say I did not want to speak to a representative in person, or I didn't want to call them. Well, they also have a mobile app, but their mobile app sucks. They're always doing updates to the app. Every time there's an update to the app, I also have to update my password. Neither of those options work, and I don't really use a mobile app to access my banking. Because this is a credit union, it's not like a commercial bank where there is an associated commercial bank ATM on every street corner. So if I wanted to access my money, then I would have to seek out certain ATMs that take my credit union debit card. It's a lot of work, which is all the more reason for why my sinking funds should live there. Because there's so many barriers to get through just to get to my account, it's the perfect solution because it's going to be hell trying to access it in the first place. This is the type of situation that I need to put myself in because of my own personality and how I have managed money in the past. I kind of know that if I don't have all these obstacles in place, I'm probably not going to stick to my goal. The bright side of the situation is I can create as many savings accounts as I want with my credit union. So all these 6 different sinking funds now have associated savings accounts with them. I chose to make them savings accounts instead of checkings accounts because I do not want to have to withdraw from them. They are not to be used for that purpose. When they're fully funded, then I can use it for the purpose that it's intended. The next strategy is to ask yourself, how will you track your progress? Create a second brain for yourself. In other words, automate. Now that all of my sinking funds have an associated account, the next step that I will be implementing to ensure that I'm tracking my progress is to automate it by setting up my direct deposit to automatically take the money from my paycheck and put it directly into those accounts before it hits my primary account. So if I am automating all of this, I'm setting up my direct deposit to tell it, go ahead and take out the funds from and put it directly into my credit union savings account, and what's left of that, put it into my commercial bank checkings account, and everything's all set. The fifth strategy is to ask yourself, how will you stay motivated? How are you going to hold yourself accountable? So what that might look like for me is if I went to go see my personal trainer and I stuck with the personal trainer for several months, I might reward myself with buying a new pair of running shoes. My favorite one is to set certain dates in your planner in advance to celebrate yourself. So flipping 6 months ahead in my planner and writing down a specific goal and saying congratulations or something like that to that effect, where I am thanking my former self for making such great strides toward a goal and marking the date that this is where that progress should be fruitful. So now that you've implemented all these 5 strategies, I'm going to tell you what I've learned sinking funds cannot be used for. They cannot act as a debt payoff plan. I tried to pay off my student loan debt 2 years ago by trying this strategy, and it just absolutely didn't work. In my head, I decided I was going to put 12 blocks together to represent 12 months, and in each of those blocks, I was going to put $1,500 in them, and then I would just go ahead and set aside $1,500 every single month. And by the end of the year, I'd have this big lump sum to just plop on top of my student loan and clear it out to zero. That did not work at all. One, because I just did not have $1,500 in discretionary income to be able to actually achieve that goal. It just was not realistic. If you've been along on my journey with me, you've seen firsthand that gig work doesn't really work like that. It's great when it does, but there might be some slow days, and therefore I may not hit that $1,500 mark. It just didn't really work that way. 2, it's not supposed to be used as an emergency fund. Yes, you can use it to put emergency fund money aside, but it's not meant to withdraw from. That is supposed to be set aside. So if you're just getting started with building an emergency fund, yes, it's great to set aside monthly increments until you've achieved a healthy financial emergency fund. It's also not really good for long-term savings. The phrase savers are losers is very, very true. You're not going to get the greatest return by putting it into a traditional savings account because you're not getting the benefit of accrued interest over time. Instead, if you're trying to save for retirement, trying to save for a big investment, probably want to put it into something that has a higher yield so that you can make your money work for you in the long term. Also, if you are trying to achieve that type of goal, that type of money shouldn't be readily accessible to you anyways. It's something that you're supposed to be using over several years. So all of these 5 strategies that I've just gone over is part of a larger strategy called paying yourself first. Instead of thinking about all the bills that I have to pay off and then living off of what is left, I'm treating all of these sinking funds as bills and paying those first and then living off of what is left. This allows me to see what areas of my life I need to get rid of or significantly reduce my spending in that particular category. And so once I've realized that I can't cut any more corners, I've really significantly reduced my budget, that's the time when I needed to consider picking up a side hustle. So that's where doing DoorDash as a side hustle income came into play, because I had done all the work of figuring out how much more can I cut down in order to achieve paying off my student loan debt. And once I realized I couldn't really cut anything else out of the budget, the real issue was that I just needed more income. I pivoted and saw that using my car and my phone as a way to make extra money was the ticket towards me moving towards financial freedom. So going back to the question that I asked you in the beginning of the video, what are your financial priorities? Well, I just shared a few of mine with you. Of course, none of these goals are going to actually be possible until I've completely finished my financial goal from last year. All of the goals that I mentioned to you today are my reason for why I was so aggressive with my student loan overpayments, because it's a lot of personal sacrifice. That type of repayment plan is a highly accelerated plan. It is designed for you to be very, very intentional for a very brief moment in time so that you can spend the rest of your time doing things that make you happy and enjoying your money without the stress, feeling like it's obligated to go someplace else. So my suggestion for this year, if you are watching this because you are trying to achieve a financial goal, particularly getting out of debt like I am, my suggestion would be to have a bigger why in addition to wanting to get down to zero balance. It has to be something more than that, more than just getting down to zero. And for me, it was all of these other things that I wanted to do with my money that I thought would be really, really fulfilling for me. I enjoy doing all of those things that I talked about today. So I'm looking forward to getting back to those things. Once you have put this much preparation into what you're doing, I guarantee you that it will make you think twice about what you're giving your time to, what you say yes to, and what will give you the greatest outcome in the long run. If you would like more content, be sure to click on this video where I go over what expenses that I cut out of my lifestyle in order to offset my financial goals. And then click on this video where you can get a glimpse into my monthly personal expenses. Until next time, I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.